How have history's trade wars played out? War was raging in the Atlantic in 1941. German submarines hunted down British convoys. On August 30th, the British Prime Minister, Churchill, embarked on a suicide mission aboard the HMS Prince of Wales. It was unclear how long it would take to defeat Nazi Germany, but Roosevelt and Churchill were already reaching an agreement based on the principles of a future world order in the Atlantic Charter. They advocated for accessible global trade for all countries, aiming for worldwide collaboration among all nations. 80 years later, world peace remains elusive despite all international economic ties. We are light years away from the harmonization of work and life, and despite global trade organizations, trade wars break out repeatedly. The trade war against China, openly declared by Donald Trump, dominated the headlines, but there are also trade wars that go unnoticed. What are trade wars about, and what do they look like? Who are the winners and the losers? The year is 1839, the heyday of the British Empire. The British were the unchallenged rulers of the world's seas and the leading trading power of the period. China, with its 400 million inhabitants, was still a sleepy, self-contained giant. In the mid-19th century, Great Britain and China had an unbalanced trade relationship. The Chinese sold tea, porcelain, and fabrics to the British, but the British sold nothing to the Chinese. They suffered incredible losses of silver, which they could not sustain in the long run. To address this, they sought to force the Chinese to open their markets and buy their goods. Initially, the Chinese in Peking and Canton paid little attention to the opium trade in the south, which was already somewhat rebellious. They thought, if they consume opium, they won't revolt. Let them be. But they underestimated the consequences when foreign gunboats arrived swiftly. By the time the governor of Canton, known for his secrecy, sent a messenger to the emperor about the fleet's presence, it was too late. China lost its first battle, leading to a treaty that forced even more Chinese trade to the British. This was a war against China in the name of free trade, orchestrated by the British. This is part of free trade theory since the late 18th century, the idea that free trade is God as diplomacy, rendering politics unnecessary. The economically leading power always promotes free trade when technologically superior, as it opens new markets. British textile manufacturers were told, if every Chinese buys just one nightcap from your production, you'll have work for decades. Between 1856 and 1860, Britain and France waged the Second Opium War to expand Western trade in China. They even destroyed the old Summer Palace in October 1860, a cultural treasure replicating significant sites from literature, art, and history. Treaty ports were forcibly opened, and foreigners, including missionaries, were allowed free movement, a humiliation for China. The opium trade was so profitable that it rebalanced commercial relations between China and Great Britain. Some drug traffickers became so wealthy that they founded a bank today known as SHBC, partly funded by their illicit gains. Decades later, under Donald Trump's policies, the reality of economic warfare became visible. Historical parallels include the Phoenicians, who guarded trade routes by spreading misinformation to deter competitors. It's crucial to understand the progression of power dynamics in today's world. Foreigners were barred from China's interior, where the best goods were produced. Some guides, despite the ban, risked taking foreigners deep into China to steal tea production secrets, how leaves are cut, dried, and blended. This historical context is often cited when China is accused of stealing technology today. Germany industrialized by stealing knowledge, sending spies to England, importing banned machinery, and copying British technology in textiles, railways, and steel. By the time they had caught up, they faced the same dilemma China does today. Having stolen all they could, they now needed to innovate. The first wave of globalization and modern transportation sped up trade, but rapid globalization led to a financial crisis in 1873. By the late 19th century, the US and Germany had become serious industrial competitors. Britain clung to free trade, accelerating its decline. Germany dominated new industries like electrical engineering and chemicals, sparking British resentment. France saw Germany as an economic threat, much like China today. The US imposed protectionist tariffs, worsening the Great Depression. The US promoted free trade through institutions like the IMF and World Bank, embedding American values globally. France, dependent on US aid, allowed Hollywood films to dominate its market, sparking resistance from filmmakers who demanded cultural protection. Economic warfare today involves nations, corporations, and individuals. The US blocked Cuba, while South Korea protected its industries under American tolerance. Japan's post-Wii economic miracle came through state-led innovation. Now, China faces accusations of theft but is transitioning to innovation. The US-China rivalry risks a new Cold War, with Europe caught in between.